All right, it's now 3 o'clock. Chad here. Big news from the NBA. Dusty May is leaving the University of Michigan to become the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. The Trailblazers are the only remaining opening in the NBA. And with May in Dallas, Mike Nori remains available, one of the Blazers' finalists in their coaching search. According to Shams, the Bucks are expected to deal Giannis before the start of tomorrow's draft, with Boston and Miami considered the finalists. And Shams is reporting that Trae Young expected to ink a 4-year, $212 million deal with the Wizards. C.J. McCollum remains with the Hawks on a 1-year deal. That worth $21 million. Messi set a World Cup record with his 17th and 18th goals as Argentina advances to the knockout stage, 2-0 over Open. G.A. Dave going to join us at 4:20 to recap the U.S. Open. And Dave going to join us at 4:20 to recap the U.S. Open. And we'll talk NFL with Ryan Edwards at 5:20.
Live from the Coors Light Studios, it's the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing. Coors Light, cold as the Rockies. Please drink responsibly.
They converge on it very quickly.
Balogun has a step on Shirkani. Balogun to the byline. Balogun into the middle. Dead! It's the United States once again on the board early. It is being checked.
That in.
After factual review, the goal scorer was not in offside position.
And the building shakes in Seattle.
The 0-1, Vierling loops it into shallow right. It is sinking. Montgomery charges, dives, and he cannot come up with it. Riley Green scores, and Matt Vierling, he walks it off with a base hit into right field.
Wyndham Clark puts his ball down. We're a long way from L.A., but the same thing happened there that happened here in New York as Wyndham Clark wins his second U.S. Open.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing starts now.
Yeah, forgive me. I'm just enjoying a little Loverboy right now. I think I was first exposed to them on American Bandstand with Dick Clark. Saturday mornings were always great for me when I was a kid because I was either at my grandma's house, my mom's mom, or I was at Nana's house, my dad's mom. And it was like a feast. I got to eat pancakes as many as I wanted, watch Saturday morning cartoons, and that would roll right into American Bandstand. And that's when I found out who Deborah Harry was. I was very impressed with that at a young age. And all the different acts that Dick Clark would have on American Bandstand. But the first time I saw Loverboy, I was like, I'm down with this. All right. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. We are experiencing some summertime conditions outside, which is fabulous. I have played so much golf over the last several days that I don't even know what to do with myself. My body is fatigued from golf, but I got to continue to push. I've got a big tournament coming up this weekend. It's at a place called Shadow Hills. Never been there, have no idea what the course is all about, but Nancy and I have another couples Chapman that we're going to attack this coming weekend. And, of course, what really ticks me off, like this time of year, I don't normally pay attention to the forecast too often because every day is pretty much the same. Sunshine, and the temperatures are anywhere from 75 up to 95. So I just don't worry about it. And then, of course, someone's like, oh, I think it might rain on Friday. So I pulled open the forecast, and I'm like, wait, what? And sure enough, there's potential rain on Friday, Saturday. So, of course, the only 2 days for like the next 20 days where it could potentially rain are the days where I'm going to be participating in this golf tournament. So looking forward to that. Had a wonderful Father's Day yesterday. Had a chance to spend time with my two kids, Kaylee and Isaac. Had a chance to spend some time with my dad. And my mom, she called me and was like, hey, do you mind helping out because your father's having a rough day? I was like, what do you mean? And then all of a sudden it clicked. I was like, oh. And it was a difficult day for my dad because it was Father's Day. And it was the first Father's Day since my brother had passed away back in December. And so it was a difficult day for my dad. But I was able to spend time with him. I spent some time with Isaac. I took him on his usual Sunday trip to Red Robin. He thought it was great. And I was like, yeah, okay. He loves Red Robin. That's like his Sunday thing. He wants to go there. So I had a chance to spend time with him, spend time with my daughter, and just tried to provide whatever support I could for my dad. He's still, going through that grieving process. And, it's going to be tough because this was the first Father's Day without my brother Chris. And his birthday is coming up in September. That's going to be a difficult day. And then, of course, the first Christmas, all the big firsts without a family member. But it's really difficult to see my dad go through the grieving process. Now, it's a normal part of life, and we all deal with death and the grieving process differently. But my dad has been a rock my entire life. Not a man that shows a lot of emotion, doesn't really talk a lot. He's more of a thinker, and I respect that about him. But, obviously when you have to bury one of your children, it's difficult. So it was a great Father's Day. Really enjoyed it. Had a chance to spend time with the family, and I hope that many of you had the same experience where you had a chance to spend time with family, hopefully be around your dad. And we saw that at the U.S. Open where Wyndham Clark won his second U.S. Open, won a couple of years ago at the L.A. Country Club, and this time at Shinnecock. And it was great because he did not know his dad was going to be there. He lost his mom, but he still got his dad. His dad took the red eye from Denver out to Shinnecock and surprised him on the 18th green, which was a pretty cool sight to see. And Wyndham Clark, he tried to give up the tournament. He tried to give it away, struggled a bit in the final round, but in the end, he was able to scramble and get the job done. And it felt like everybody else, like Scotty Scheffler and all the guys who were chasing him, they just could never come up with the clutch putt or the big shot to really make the noise that was necessary. And Clark did a good job of, finishing out the round 16, 17, 18. So pretty cool to see, though, his dad, pop up. Also, I had a interesting experience this weekend, too. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that my daughter, did I tell you? I'm not sure if I did. She went on her first date, and she's 16 and a half, and she came to me, and she's like, Dad, do you mind if I go to Oaks Park this weekend? I'm like, well, of course you can go. That's no problem. And I said, who with? And she's like, oh, this boy. And I was like, well, who's going to be there with the two of you? And she explained that it was going to be his mom and sister. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I'm not letting her date one-on-one. I just can't really see any type of situation where that's a good idea because I know what the intended outcome of that type of situation is, and I'm not cool with that. But she had a good time on the date. I did not get a chance to meet the boy that day that they went to Oaks Park, but this past weekend he had some type of family function, and so I drove her to the restaurant and then picked her up, and she wanted to go and spend time. And so after I picked her up, he came out and I had a chance to meet him for the first time. Now, keep in mind, this is the first boy that has shown interest in my daughter. I don't know if you would call them boyfriend, girlfriend, but that seems like the direction it's headed. So in my mind, I did not want to like him at all. In fact, I think it's easy to say that I naturally wanted to hate this young man. Never met him before, but he's got interest in my daughter. So obviously I'm on guard. Well, he comes out, shakes my hand, incredible eye contact, well-spoken. He had beautiful teeth, great smile. And I can honestly say that he was a nice young man. Like, he impressed me with the way that he approached me. First impression with him was very good. And so I was trying to find something that I could, take shots at. So I was talking to him, and I asked him, I said, so what are your plans for the summertime? And he's like, well, I have a job. I'm like, well, what are you doing? He said, I work with my grandpa, and we do construction and painting for Clark County. And I'm like, dang, that's pretty good. And he told me that he has a car, but he cannot drive yet because he does not have an A and B average. He's got a couple of C's on his report card, so his parents are not letting him drive. So anyways, he seems like a responsible young man, as responsible as a 17-year-old boy could be, but I was impressed. So I did not expect that. I thought I would meet him, instantly start hating on him, and then try to come up with the reasons of why my daughter should not spend any time around him, but that did not happen. He was good. Good young man, and from what my daughter tells me, he is respectful to her. So that was an interesting experience. How many of you guys out there remember the first time that your daughter went on a date and you met that boy for the first time? Like, what was going through your mind? What freaks me out is just knowing what goes through boys' minds. There was probably a stretch of like 5 or 6 years when I was younger. I don't think I had a pure thought for like 6 straight years. And so knowing that about me and knowing what me and my boys at that time talked about and what we obsessed about, that's what freaks me out. And I try to explain that to my daughter. But anyways, good experience, good weekend. Coming up on the show today, a couple of different things. One, we're going to recap the U.S. Open and Wyndham Clark's victory with PGA David Coleman at 420. And then Ryan Edwards is going to join us to talk some NFL at 520. But PGA Dave, and also I found an audio bite that we'll play for PGA Dave. We'll see if he remembers it. But there was one time where he called into the show and actually had conversation with SEC guy talking about his golf game and Smooth Water Country Club. So I'm going to play that for PGA Dave. He probably forgot or doesn't even remember the phone call, but I'll play it for him. It's pretty funny. So we'll do that with PGA Dave, and then we'll get his outlook on the Open Championship after the U.S. Open was played and played well. And Wyndham Clark gets another championship. And then we'll talk NFL with Ryan Edwards. We'll also talk a lot of Trailblazers today. The NBA draft is coming up tomorrow. So I'll kind of give you an offseason primer. The Blazers have no picks in the draft, so they're not expected to be players. I mean, I guess they could technically buy into this second round, but they do not have a first-round pick. But the good news is they have all of their picks moving forward. So the Blazers enter an offseason now where they have great flexibility. They have the assets and the ability to make an aggressive move and go big game hunting. They also are not in a position to where they have to do anything. They could bring back their free agents and stand pat with the young core that they have, knowing that Damian Lillard is going to be available next year. That's a possibility. But it's kind of a good spot to be where they've got a new owner. The question I have is, does Tom Dundon want to make a big splash? Like, does he really want to get after it and have a big splash and make something happen? And that's the answer that we're going to find. Also, I can tell you this, and this comes from a very trusted source that I got today, but the Portland Trailblazers are expected to have a coach in place by the end of the week. Now, the big news was Dusty May, the head coach at Michigan, who just won a national championship. He is on his way to Dallas, and he's going to become the new head coach of the Mavericks. That reported by Shams. So with May going to Dallas, that means the only remaining opening in the NBA for a head coaching position is the Portland Trailblazers. That also means with May taking the job in Dallas, that Minnesota assistant Mike Inori is available. And if he wants to be a head coach, it would seem like this is a match made in heaven. So the Blazers expected to have their head coach in place by the end of the week. Draft tomorrow night and Wednesday. It's a 2-day event now. And the Blazers expected to have their coach. And then shortly thereafter, the offseason is going to begin with the kickoff of a brand new league year. Also, Shams reporting that the Milwaukee Bucks are expected to deal Giannis between now and the start of the draft tomorrow. They want to get it done before the draft, so that could come down anytime. And according to the reports, it looks like Boston and Miami are the two leaders in the clubhouse for a Giannis landing spot. The big question is, could the Blazers become a third team and net something of significance in that process? All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Whatever you want to talk about is fine by me. 503-248-0620. You can find me on social at Chad and Rip City. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, another question I have for you. And this is something that he's had regard to Tom Dundon, the new owner of the Portland Trailblazers. He's had a lot of Tom Dundon, the new owner of the Portland Trailblazers. He's had a lot of success in business and obviously in the NHL, where his team, the Carolina Hurricanes, just won a Stanley Cup. And what I like about Dundon is he's a self-made man. He knows what it's like to basically have nothing, and then through his hard work, he was able to build basically an empire and got himself into sports, which is pretty cool. But I've seen some people suggest that his success in business and also the NHL does not correlate to potential future success in the NBA. And I just disagree with that. You know, for people like Tom Dundon, he's obviously very sharp. He's got a great business sense. And we know that he's learned how pro sports operates through his work with the Carolina Hurricanes. It doesn't mean that he's not going to have missteps or make mistakes along the way. But I do think through his experience, which is pretty vast, that you can make a pretty good suggestion and have an idea that he'll figure it out. And that's what I like about Dundon. He's going to put in the time. He wants to win. And I think through his efforts, he'll be able to figure it out, which is great. And the only real mistakes, if you want to call them that I've been able to identify, that everyone's aware of from the people I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of different people who are in the know or at least are much closer to the situation I am. Number one, the coaching search. So from what I can gather from multiple people, there's an unwritten rule that in the NBA, you don't start calling potential candidates for a head coaching job until your coach has finished out or finished coaching the current season. So apparently Dundon was making phone calls before Thiago Splitter had finished his run through the play-in tournament and the first round playoff series against San Antonio. Okay. So he violated the unwritten rules. I can also understand from Dundon's point of view that, hey, I'm taking over a team late in the game. We're going to have to hire a head coach. I need to start calling guys and getting a handle on this situation. The other would be the two-way players not going to Phoenix. He later corrected that, and we saw them in San Antonio during the playoff series. And he admitted that on the podcast that he was on, where he said, hey, I just didn't understand the NBA game. In the NHL, we don't send extra players. We don't want the distraction, but the NBA seems to thrive and embrace those type of situations. So he's going to learn from the missteps. I mean, any owner is going to make them. Paul Allen certainly did, but hopefully with that experience and that you go through, and then with your smarts, you're able to put it together and figure things out, quickly. Now, the good thing is that, the Blazers are nearing the hiring of their head coach. I was told today that that's expected to happen by the end of the week. So I would expect a coach in place by Thursday or Friday, possibly sooner. But I think by Friday, we'll know who the next head coach of the Trailblazers is going to be. And Joe Cronin is still in place with the Trailblazers, which is good. Joe Cronin has gotten better day by day, year by year on the job as general manager. And he's also put the Blazers in a position to have plenty of assets to work with. So, like I mentioned before, the Blazers really are in a good spot. They can be aggressive and go big game hunting, or they can remain patient and allow the young core to continue to grow and just continue to wait until the right opportunity is there to pounce to get the big fish that you're looking for. So the Blazers, and when I mention flexibility, they are sitting in a good spot. And really, when you look at the way this summer could, play out for Portland, they could be anywhere from like a big-time player, or they could be that third team in a three-team deal to pick up someone that they're after, or they can remain patient and just continue to develop the players that they have and look to augment through free agency. I guess what I'm trying to say is that Portland's in a good spot. They don't have a pick in the upcoming draft, which starts tomorrow, but they do have the $15.1 million mid-level exception and the $5.5 million biannual exception. So they've got those tools to be able to sign players in free agency, or they can use that or use those as tools to absorb players through potential trades that could be coming. The salary cap for the upcoming season is going to be $165 million. The tax line sits at $201 million, with the first and second apron set at $209 and $222 million. So the Blazers right now with their cap situation, their current payroll is $170,197,298. So there you go. So they're above the cap barely, but they're over $30 million below the tax line. So financially, the Trailblazers are in really good shape right now. Their free agents are Robert Williams III, Matisse Thybulle, Blake Wesley, all unrestricted, and Caleb Love is a restricted free agent. Shaedon Sharpe and Tamani Kamara begin the first seasons on their rookie extensions, and that adds trade value with reasonable four-year contracts, meaning one of those two pieces, Shaedon Sharpe or Tamani Kamara, could become a part of a deal if Portland decides to go big game hunting. And this goes back to the roster having not just those two, but multiple players with contracts that could be very tradable, or especially if you're going to go big game hunting and you're bringing back a player with a big number, it could put them in a position to be a player. Scoot Henderson's going to be eligible for an extension until the last day before the regular season begins. So Portland could look to get something done long-term for Scoot, or they can wait until next summer and let him hit restricted free agency. So the Blazers have 12 players who are currently under contract for next season, and 14 is the league mandate. But the most important thing is, after missing out on the draft this year and having that pick conveyed to Chicago, the Blazers have full control of all of their tradable first-round picks between 2027 and 2033. So the Blazers have access to all of their picks. They have total flexibility with those picks, and they've got multiple contracts on the roster that are very tradable, which could be very helpful if they want to get a deal done moving into the future. And as I mentioned before, Portland could look to maintain continuity, re-sign their free agents, which would keep them under the cap tax, and bring back the roster that went 42-40 last year, knowing that you got Dame coming back from the Achilles injury. And the flexibility, because of where they sit money-wise and with all of their picks and having some tradable assets, they can be patient and develop. They always talk about internal development, and they've got some veterans on the team. Or they can actually go out and engage with discussions to bring in a big player. Like I've said, my dream scenario with potential trades over the next couple of weeks would be the Blazers being a third team in that Giannis deal to where they can land Jaylen Brown. I've gone back and forth in my mind thinking about Giannis, and that's just not the player I want the Blazers to deal for. And I don't think the Blazers are players for Giannis, but the main reason why I don't want Giannis is his age, 31. He's going to be 32 during the season next year, this upcoming season. He's had some injury issues. His game is predicated on, physicality. He plays more above the rim. He's not exactly a Jokic type. Does not solve the spacing issue because he's not a great shooter. And because of the concerns with his body, not knowing how many more years of elite basketball he's got left, you would have to give up a ton of assets for him. So it's a more risky maneuver. But also, I'm not going to give up multiple assets for a player that won't agree to re-sign. Now, if Giannis was all about re-signing in Portland, you can get him set up on a long-term deal, then I would absolutely look into it. But in the end, that's not my first choice. But Jaylen Brown in a potential multi-team deal, because the Celtics obviously are dead set on, getting Giannis. They want Giannis. He would probably fit the Celtics really well because you could put him on the floor with four guys who can space and shoot, and it's going to work out pretty well, I would guess. And the Celtics most certainly in a deal involving Giannis would have to give up Jaylen Brown. Well, maybe Jaylen Brown could be moved on from the Bucks to Portland, and that's a way for the Bucks to get their picks back. But Jaylen Brown is younger, But what I like most about his situation, not just his game and the fact he's a great two-way player, but you would have multiple years, 3 of them, of team control. So you're giving up assets, but you're getting a player who's a high-level NBA player, and you've got multiple years of team control, which is great. And his ability to go both ways, physical player, good defender, can shoot. He can create his own shot. Like, he's got a lot of the tools that you want to see in a basketball player, which is pretty nice. So I like where the Blazers sit right now. They've got their tools. They got all their draft picks moving forward. They've got contracts they can utilize to be able to make a big deal happen, or they can remain patient and just wait. Now, some of the players who are going to be available who could be targets, for that mid-level exception, and that's $15.1 million a year. The Blazers will have access to the full mid-level. The Blazers, Hornets, Mavericks, Clippers, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Pelicans, the San Antonio Spurs, the Utah Jazz, the Washington Wizards. Those are the teams that have access to the full mid-level exception. Some of the players who would kind of fit that mold, Quentin Grimes from Philly, John Collins with the Clips, Robert Williams III. That could be a potential to re-sign. And Williams is an interesting player because I think he's got value. And he did say, and he was honest in his exit interview, he was like, hey, I've enjoyed my time here. And he was asking about what his priority is going to be. And he's like, well, money's definitely going to be a priority. So you're not going to be able to get Robert Williams on the cheap, but maybe you do look to get him back with the mid-level exception. And maybe he wants to stay in Portland because with the training staff, they found the happy medium. They figured out a formula for how many minutes he should play, when to give him nights off, and he was able to be healthy and productive throughout the course of the entire season. And as a result, he felt better. His mental health was better. He was a difference maker. And I thought a really good 1-2 punch with Donovan Clingan. Robert Williams is a valuable vet. Maybe you look to bring him back, and maybe he wants to be here because the Blazers found that sweet spot for how to utilize him and keep him healthy, which has been a big challenge for him. But you can see when he's on the floor healthy, even in limited minutes, ultra productive. Colin Gillespie, Kelly Oubre, Mitchell Robinson, Luke Kennard, Rui Hachimura, Nikola Vucevic, and Kobe White. Those are some of the names you would look at in that category. Players who are expected to be on the trade block: Ja Morant, Domantas Sabonis, Miles Turner. Miles Turner is a delicious big who can spread the floor. Cam Johnson, Lou Dort, Julius Randle, Michael Porter Jr., Isaiah Joe, Zach LaVine, and DeMar DeRozan. So there you have it. That's kind of what we're looking at this summer. And we'll see what these teams can do. 503-248-0620. Some of the above mid-level exception free agents: Austin Reeves, Tari Eason, Walker Kessler, Peyton Watson, Quentin Grimes. 503-248-0620. Let's go out to the phones. Pat in Portland wants to chime in on the Rip City Drive. Pat, appreciate the phone call. You're up. What's on your mind?
Hey, bud. Hope you're doing well. Like your interview last week, and I had 2 questions real quick. Number one, dealing with the Blazers, we went through that staffing cut, and they said they cut around 70. Do you know if they've hired anybody back, either past people or new people to fill some of those positions, or were they just automatically not going to be refilled? That was first question.
Okay, what's number 2?
Question. Number 2, I think that the Blazers going forward need to automatically, the owner, needs to keep Joe. I think Joe is the actual glue that's going to keep this team functioning in at least the next 2 to 3 years. And if the owner cuts him and wants to go a different direction, and I hope Joe doesn't want to leave, I hope, because we're sunk. I seriously believe that. I think we need to keep him here because he's a good go-between between the owner learning and the team, and I think Joe will do what he can to put the best product on the floor. and that's coach and players.
Yeah, I got it. No, I'm with you. I'm a big fan, Pat, of Joe Cronin, and he's here. He's in place. He's not going anywhere for the time being. Joe Cronin's done a very good job. He's very easy to talk to, very smart. Like, he has worked his tail off. What I love about his story is that he started out with the Blazers as an intern and has slowly worked himself all the way to the top to where he's a general manager. That's pretty awesome. His story is terrific, but he has done a great job in deals, standing firm, restocking the cupboard with assets, and putting them in a position to where, like I mentioned before, they can be aggressive and go after a big fish if they want. But at the same time, they can be patient. I don't think they feel like they have to do anything right now. If it's there and it makes sense, they can pounce. But if not, they can remain patient and continue with their internal development. So Joe Cronin's done a great job, and I like him, and he's not going to go anywhere right now. He's in place. And there you have it. So I'm confident that Joe Cronin's going to remain. And I forgot his second question. What was the first question? Crapola. Oh, it was about the layoffs. So of the layoffs that took place, I have not heard of the Blazers making any replacement hires since they went through their round of layoffs. I mean, I don't anticipate that. I think Tom Dunham was very clear on what he's looking to accomplish, and that is by eliminating jobs that they thought were redundant, they're going to give more responsibility to fewer people, and they think in that process they're going to be more productive. And I have talked to, a couple of people within the organization that actually support, a number of the cuts because they do think it's going to make them, more productive. And then I think what happens is anytime you go through, cuts, as time moves on, you may notice that we need to add a person here or we'll add a person back here. So I think it's always going to be a work in progress as time goes on. But I think they're excited about where they're at because they are going to give more responsibility to fewer people. And they think from that people will be more productive. And you can jump on board if you'd like. We're going to recap the U.S. Open 620. You can jump on board if you'd like. We're going to recap the U.S. Open with PGA David Coleman coming up at 4:20. We'll talk some NFL at 5:20. I am enjoying the sunshine, too. It's awesome. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, I had to find the as Into the Night. Give me a little volume on that. The night. Give me a little volume on that. All right, I gave you the background on this song recently on the show, and I'm going to pull it up again. This song right here that you're listening to is not the original cut of the song, but it's a unique song because it charted at two different times. This here is the 1989 version. This is pretty awesome. Mardones originally released Into the Night back in June of 1980. The song peaked at number 11 on the Hot 100 for 2 weeks that September, logging 20 weeks on the chart before falling off in late October. Mardones was unable to duplicate Into the Night's success and is considered a one-hit wonder. He also went to Miami to work from a studio there, and I think the rock and roll lifestyle derailed him. In 1989, a Where Are They Now Arizona radio segment spurred by LA DJ Scott Shannon to add the song to his playlist, ultimately returning the song onto the national charts. On May 6th, this time it peaked at number 20, the first week in July, adding 17 weeks to its previous run of 20 for a total of 37 non-consecutive weeks. Into the Night was a hit on adult contemporary radio this time as well, where it spent 19 weeks and also peaked at number 20 on the chart. The original recording is in C minor. Shortly before his 2017 retirement, Mardones performed it in B minor to accommodate his aging voice. Now, I bring this up because this song is awesome, and it's one of my favorite all time, but it's also accompanied by the creepiest music video ever. Now, Shaker, you've seen a lot of music videos like I have. It is number one in terms of creepiness, right?
Yeah. You can feel that this video should be banned from the airwaves, but thank God for the internet. Nothing gets banned from the internet.
Jeff Workman reached out to me just a couple of days ago. He said, Chad, I should have taken your advice and not watched this video. Creepy AF. I told you, don't watch the video, Jeff, and you watched the video. Oh, my gosh. It is creepy. It's the creepiest video I've ever seen. We also played his explanation, but I don't have time to get into that, so my apologies, of course. Scotty Bethune chimed in to say my shirt is stupid. That's because I'm wearing a Dodgers shirt, and he loves the Giants. Also, Alec Boyd chimed in, the Bonsai Burger is my kid's favorite. Yeah, Isaac loves Red Robin. It's like his favorite place to go to. And he gets a plain burger. He's changed up, though. He's adding things to his palate. So now he gets a plain burger, but he wants onions, and then they put the campfire sauce on it. So plain burger with onions and campfire sauce, and then he wants his veggies on the side. And then he eats a bunch of the steak fries, and he always gets a Cookie Monster shake to go. That's how he works it. Jeff reaches out and says, how alarming is it that the Trailblazers don't have a coach with the draft being on Tuesday? Well, I talked to someone that's in the know last week, and they told me that they don't need to have a coach in place by the draft. And I said, is it necessary to have the coach in place by the start of the new league year? And I was told they would like to have their coach in place by the start of the new league year, but it's not necessary. And the reason why is because they haven't hired a coach yet. The draft kicks off tomorrow, and free agency is right around the corner at the end of June with the start of the new league year. And the reason why it's not alarming is the Blazers front office has already put in the work in terms of what they're looking for, what they want to accomplish, what they want to do. And so it's pretty simple that they don't have to worry about, getting the input from the coach because they've already done the homework with the moves they want to make. Now, obviously, having the coach on board is going to be helpful, but it's not necessary. So is it alarming, Jeff? I don't think so. But as I mentioned before, I was told by a very trusted source today that they are expected to have their coach in place by the end of the week, Friday. So I would expect the Blazers to have their coach named by Friday, which means that coach will be in place for the start of free agency. And remember, the reason why it's not important to have the coach in place by the draft this year is that the Blazers, well, they don't have any draft picks. So there's nothing going on for Portland tomorrow or Wednesday in the draft. Now, could they be a part of a trade? Yes, but they do not have draft picks, and I do not expect them to try and buy into the first round, because to get into a spot where to get one of these, and if you're, I appreciate your time. You got the Rip City Drive, 503-248-0620. And if you're listening to me, appreciate your time. You got the Rip City Drive, 503-248-0620. And if you're listening to me, this is a public service announcement from yours truly. If you have not seen the Benny Mardones video for Into the Night, do not go home and search it. Do not pull it up on YouTube. You do not want to watch it. It's not going to do you anything. It's not going to make your life better. You're just going to watch and be like, wow. All right, 503-248-0620. Don't be like Jeff Workman and watch the video when I told him not to. Come on, Jeff. All right, you got the Rip City Drive. All right, 4 o'clock chat here. What's up, my friends? Big news from the NBA. Dusty May is leaving the University of Michigan to become the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. The Trailblazers are the only remaining opening for coach in the NBA, and with May in Dallas, Mike Inori remains available, one of the finalists for their coaching position. According to Shams, the Bucks are expected to deal Giannis before the start of tomorrow's draft, with Boston and Miami considered the finalists. Shams also reporting that Trae Young expected to ink a 4-year, $212 million deal with the Wizards. C.J. McCollum will stay with the Hawks, 1-year deal worth $21 million. How about Messi? Set a World Cup record with his 17th and 18th goals as Argentina advances to the knockout round. 2-0 over Austria. And Argentina, of course, the World Cup defending champions. We're going to recap the U.S. Open win by Wyndham Clark coming up at 4:20 with PJ Dave. The video. All right, Haunted Horse apparently just watched the video with. All right, Haunted Horse apparently just watched the video with Benny Mardonez, Into the Night. Hey, Chad, that video is so cringe, it should be arrested.
What, for warning him?
That video is the creepiest one that I've seen. And there were a lot of bad videos back in the day. But the weird part about those videos, like when MTV first became a thing or Night Tracks on TBS, Shacker, I don't even think the artists knew what they were doing. They were just trying to jump on board with everyone else so they could get their music on MTV.
Yeah, you don't deserve to be arrested. You watched it so other people don't have to. According to Kevin Smith, movie director, a lot of those early 80 videos were directed by porno directors.
They were?
Yeah, because they had the cameras,
yeah,
and the know-how how to make videos.
Well, he wasn't suggesting I should be arrested. He's saying the video itself should be arrested.
Oh, okay.
They should put the video behind bars. Well, that would make sense then if you had porno directors dealing with the music videos. Maybe that's why you came up with some of the very weird videos that we saw. And looking back now, I understand, just like I do with a lot of things, why my mom did not want me watching MTV. Chad, that's inappropriate. We don't want that on in the house. I remember one time Uncle Howard he's a great man. That was my Nana's brother, and he lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was the guy that worked at the hospital, the osteopathic hospital where I was born, which is now like the Oklahoma State Medical Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He worked there as an administrator for years and years. And he was the guy who helped facilitate my adoption with my parents. And, back in the day, mid-'70s in Oklahoma, I think adopting children was a lot easier than it is now. And I think I've shared this story before, but my dad jokes because I always ask him, like, how much do you have to pay, all the fees and everything for me to be adopted? He's like, I don't think it cost me a darn thing. So, like, I was cheap. And so I joke with my dad, I'm like, well, you get what you pay for. But that's how it went down. So basically, this is all I know about my adoptive parents. So I know that they were young. I don't know the exact age of my mom, but she may have been pre-18, like maybe 17. But they were young. And I think my dad, my biological father, may have been in the military. But they were very young, and I think they were not well off, not much in terms of means. And so this young lady came in and wanted to give me up for adoption. Well, the Dr. Shepler, who ended up being my doctor until we moved away from Oklahoma, nice guy. I've spoken with him recently. I reached out to him. Well, he basically was going to step up and adopt me, but Uncle Howard was like, well, let me check with Jim and Paulina, those are my parents, and see if they have interest in another son. They'd already adopted my brother, And so he spoke with my parents. They were on board, and then the rest is history. So I'm sharing this because my Uncle Howard, because of that connection and him helping facilitate the adoption, like he and I have always had a good connection. And he recently passed away, but he was a great man, and he worked at the hospital for years and years. And he and I have always been close, and we would maintain contact over the years. I would call him, and we'd have conversation. He was part of I think they call it the Manna House. But anyways, he ran like this soup kitchen in Tulsa. I had the chance to go back and visit family for my Nana's 90th birthday, and I had a chance to work at the Manna House for a day. And so I would help support the Manna House, but, you know, he did a lot of good work with different people. He cared about people and wanted to make a difference there in the community, but he was the one that helped facilitate the adoption. And now I don't even remember why I was talking about this in the first place. What was my original reason for bringing this up? I don't even remember now.
Music videos.
Oh, music videos. So anyways, Uncle Howard, because we were close and, you know, he treated me like a son, I would spend time at his house during the summertime because I loved hanging out there because I was close to his two kids. Todd, his son, he was like the crazy cousin. He had his own truck, and he would drive really fast, and he was into, like, thrill anything. If it involved a roller coaster, a big-ass water slide, or whatever it was, my cousin Todd was in. He was crazy. He's still crazy. Great guy, but he is up for any type of an adrenaline rush at all times. So he was great, and then my cousin Lisa she's a sweetheart. So I loved hanging out with them. And at the time, Lisa's boyfriend, Randy, was a big-time basketball player. So we would go play hoops, pick up hoops all the time. So I loved hanging out at Uncle Howard's house. But one day I'll never forget, I think it was Level 42, Something About You. I was watching music videos at his house. I think it was either VH1 or MTV. And Uncle Howard came in the room and he's like, Chad, we don't watch that in this house. And he made me turn it off. But I was like, that's a bummer. That's a great song. I was like, Uncle Howard's a great song. But he was just like, he thought music videos were the devil. He really did. I think he thought it was going to pollute and rot my brain, so he made me turn it off. Thank God it was not Into the Night that was on. He would have really been freaked out then. So there you have it. Uncle Howard would not let me watch music videos. My mom did not approve of music videos. And Bo Derek is the reason why HBO got taken out of our house and off the TV. I was on the ground floor of, like, cable TV, and I remember when we first got cable TV, and it had, like, HBO, and then my brother and I were watching the movie 10 with Bo Derek, and then my mom came in, and that's when HBO left the house. It was a quick process. I was like, Mom, what's the problem here? It's just Bo Derek. Maybe she's not worrying much of anything, but Mom, it's just Bo Derek. It's no big deal. She did not like that either. So there you go. Mom and Dad, straight and narrow. Uncle Howard, definitely straight and narrow. There you have it. So instead of watching music videos, my Aunt Vicky was a great piano and organ player, so she would play music for us. Let's go out to the phones, 503-248-0620. Trailblazers. A lot of people are wondering what's going to go down over the next couple of weeks. Let's go to Evan in Portland. Evan, appreciate the phone call. You're up on the Rip City Drive. What is on your mind?
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm fabulous, man. What's up?
Okay, Blazers need to get Kevin Durant. Everyone else in the market is wishy-washy. I feel like they're saying on ESPN that the Bucks and the Celtics or Miami it's a two-team ordeal. And I feel like if we can't get anything out of that, let's just pivot and get Kevin Durant. We need that scoring, that automatic bucket getter. You've seen in the playoffs that, you know, at times Denny, he couldn't do anything. It was Drew. He couldn't do anything. So I feel like we need a go-to scorer, a veteran, someone who could just plug in and get a bucket, you know, because we have a tremendous defense. What do you think about that?
Well, I'll tell you what I think about that. One, that's a great phone call, Evan, so make sure you call in again. Kevin Durant's something I've talked about with Sean Hiken, our Trailblazer insider, where he's one of those guys where there could be a marriage breakup. Oh, I got some audio I got to play from Kevin Durant. He's straight delusional. The way these young players or these current crop of NBA players are trying to rewrite history is insane. So Kevin Durant be crazy, but he's a great baller. But I think with the burner accounts and the way things went down in Houston, they could be looking at maybe a divorce. But I would like Kevin Durant a lot because, one, you could probably get him for a lot less than someone like Giannis. In fact, I don't think. I know you could get him for cheaper than Giannis. But what I like about Durant, the guy's like a 50, 40, 90 shooter. 50% from the field, 40% from three, and 90% from the line. He helps them in a big way with his ability to shoot. He's one of the best offensive scorers I've ever seen in the history of my life watching NBA basketball. And, you know, he can get a shot up over anyone. And what I like about his fit or potential fit with a team like Portland is that you bring KD in, he's not the type of guy who's going to be your vocal leader in the clubhouse, in the locker room. That's not him. That's not the way he rolls. So I think maybe with strong leadership like Dame or Drew Holiday, guys like that who kind of set the tone for the team, KD can just settle in and ball and then have as many burner accounts as he want. And everything will go fine until he starts cracking guys on the current Trailblazer roster with his burner accounts. And then when asked directly about it, he'll say, I don't have time to get into that Twitter nonsense. The stuff that he was putting out on Twitter on his burner accounts, it's wild. Just openly cracking guys. I love it, but, you know, it's a little bit odd. But I'll get to his audio. He was saying some crazy stuff about the time he joined the Warriors. It's like, what, bro? You kidding me? Let's go out to Blake in Portland. Hey, Blake, I appreciate the call. You're up on the Rip City Drive. What's up, man? Fire away.
I didn't know that there was an incident in the locker room last year at Oakmont after the tournament was over involving Wyndham. I didn't even know it happened. Can you give me some detail?
Yes, I can absolutely do that. Thank you, Blake. I appreciate that. Yeah, Wyndham Clark. And I'll save that, and I'll get into that before we talk to PJ Dave. 503-248-0620. But there are some people who were rooting against Wyndham Clark for his past transgressions, shall we say. And I'll give you the details on that when we come back. But I thought Wyndham Clark, you know, no one around him or chasing him could come up with the big putt or the big. So I'll give you the details on the other side of Wyndham Clark's indiscretions. And then PJ David Coleman will join us to talk U.S. Open and recap the event. And what a great finish it was for Clark, who won the tournament, his second U.S. Open, and was surprised by his dad. You got the Rip City Drive. PJ Dave's coming up next. I'll give you details on Clark as well. All right, Rip City Drive. Now, here in just a moment, we're going to be joined by PGA David Coleman. Now, we had the question right before we went to break about Wyndham Clark's indiscretions of the past. He's made some inappropriate comments and had a couple of on-course temper tantrums, most notably the situation there with the PGA Championship. I think it was in 2025 at Quail Hollow, just a month before the Oakmont event. Clark flung his driver in frustration after a poor tee shot, which damaged a sponsor sign and narrowly missed a flag attendant. He also made comments at the 26 Masters Par 3 contest. He made an on-mic joke about having no kids, calling it great birth control, while playing alongside other golfers and their families. And then, of course, the situation in the locker room at Oakmont after he missed the cut of the 25 Open. He caused significant damage to the lockers in, quote, a fit of rage. This resulted in a suspension from the historic club, for which he was required to pay for damages, make a charitable donation, and complete anger management. So that is what people were referring to. 503-248-0620. Now, our next guest, I stumbled across this, and I want to play it because it's kind of funny. But there was one time where we were taking phone calls from listeners for SEC guy, Carol Kenton Cogslaughter. And one of the guys that called in was PGA Dave, who didn't want to talk college football with SEC guy, but ask him about his golf game. Let's take a listen.
What's going on, guys? How you doing
What's
there?
up, bro?
Hey, first off, SEC guy, I want to ask you a question, man. I hear you're an expert at football, but I want to hear about your golf game, man. I've heard you play at that Smoothwater Country Club. I mean, are you good enough to take your game to the pro level, man? I mean, are you going to be out there in a couple years teeing it up against Tiger and Lefty and Ernie and all those guys? Because it seems like, as much smack as you talk about football, I've heard a lot of smack you talk about golf, too, down south there in Houston. So I want to hear what you got about your golf game. Are you good enough to go to the big time? That's my question.
That's a good question. That's a good question. Finally, a good question. Carrying right now 5 over to Smoothwater Country Club, where I am a member, and I'm pretty handy on the member guest. A couple of years I had Curtis Strange come in with me. He was my guest, and we did a pretty good number on Smoothwater Country Club. Let's just say that. I'm carrying about a 5. No, I will not go play professionally. I like to stay on Robert Trent Jones courses. Don't worry, hippies, you don't know what that means. Let's just say they're really good golf courses here in the South. And yes, I will not be going pro, but I will continue to take people's money out on the golf course because, like the SEC, when the putt means something, I get the cheese.
All right, let's go out to the phones. Joining us once again to recap the U.S. Open, our PGA Pro, David Coleman is back. PGA Dave, what's up, brother? You remember that phone call?
I sure do, Chad. That was awesome. Wow, that guy, he was a legend back in the day. Yeah, I remember him going on radio shows all over the country. What a great guest he was.
Yeah, I love it. PJ Dave is with us. Well, before we get to the tournament itself, I had someone call before the break to talk about Wyndham Clark's, indiscretions beforehand. But how would you best describe him before he seemed to get things under control?
I think he's just really cocky, Chad. I think he's really cocky. He's brash. I think he says what's on his mind. I think he definitely had anger issues. I think all this stuff happened, and I think now he's got to really figure it out. He's really seemed like he somewhat figured it out, the way he acted yesterday, in that final round when the fans were getting after him and everything like that. I think there's no doubt that, he's a guy that's been polarizing, to say the very least. He's got a lot of Patrick Reed in him. I think he's a guy that's not afraid to speak his mind, like you brought up about what he said at the Masters, at the Par 3 contest. So I think he's a great player, but I think he's a guy that, when you have that high of a profile on the PGA Tour, or you're a professional athlete, there's a certain way you got to carry yourself. You say certain things, people are going to remember that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's no question about it. It was interesting. He was the wire-to-wire leader in the tournament this weekend. And the weird part about yesterday, Dave, I'm not sure what you thought, but it sure seemed to me like, he wanted to give the lead back, but he was able to stabilize as he got deeper into the round yesterday. But all the guys chasing him, they just couldn't seem to come up with the big shot or the big putt at the right time to put pressure on him.
Totally agree with you, Chad. Yeah, and I think that goes into the golf course, too. Shinnecock, the greens are not easy. It plays more like a links course, so there's so much uncertainty when the ball hits the ground there. And I think, too, the winds were enough where it was challenging for these guys to really, hit the right shot into these greens. There's a lot of uphill shots, downhill shots, so that's where it plays different than a links course that we see overseas for the British Open. So I think there's no doubt that, when you're playing a golf course like that, you've got to be spot on. And we saw, like, even that putt that Clark made on the 16th hole at the end, that putt, barely went in the hole. So there's no doubt. I mean, your game has to be razor sharp to really play well and to, be effective on that golf course, especially on a Sunday of the U.S. Open.
What'd you think about some of his work late in the round to get out of that fescue and to get up and down? Like he was teetering on disaster, but, man, when he got himself into trouble, he did a good job of getting up and down.
It was incredible. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. It seemed like, the bigger the moment, the more the pressure he rose up, and under the gun, especially that lie on 16 where he pulled the tee shot, he hit it way left. Everybody probably thought, okay, this is the Wyndham Clark of old where, he gets frustrated, he gets angry. He hit a great shot out of the fescue. He hit a wedge that had a ton of spin on it. I thought that ball was going to go over the green. And then he makes probably one of the biggest putts of the tournament to give himself a 2-shot lead. And then, I mean, even after that 3-putt on 17, to come back on 18, he muscled it out of the first cut of rough, got it on there, and hit at a great lag putt there to tap it in to win. It showed a lot of guts, a lot of maturity, and a guy that is a big-time player that can, I think really be a force on the PGA Tour for several years to come.
What respect to me, too, we've all played golf, a lot of those par putts that he was able to make to save par, those knee knockers, in the first 3 rounds, he just made putt after putt after putt. It's not easy to do that, but he kept his nerves in check.
He did, yeah, and especially considering how, the grass there on the greens, Chad, you could see how short they cut those greens there for the U.S. Open at Shinnecock. And I just think the biggest thing is when you make those putts, the confidence in your game goes up so much more because now you've gotten out of trouble. You're saving pars when other guys in those situations might make bogeys. So, it gives you, so much more confidence. And then especially on a golf course like that where you're going to miss opportunities, you're going to miss shots because it's so demanding. And there were so many areas where there were runoffs on the sides of the greens, behind the greens, and if you missed, your ball would run off the green. You could make a bogey pretty easily. So there's no doubt that his short game all week really was at the highest level in the world, especially as demanding as that golf course was.
We're talking to PGA David Coleman, recapping the U.S. Open. Wyndham Clark is now a 2-time U.S. Open champ. Well, one of the guys you mentioned before the tournament that could show well was Sam Burns, and he was right there nipping on his tail. He finished at 3 under, 1 shot back. What did you think about Burns' performance?
Yeah, great week, Chad. I think he's a guy that's got, a tremendous game. His ball flight, he hits that left-to-right cut shot that works great in major championships. But I think the biggest thing is, when he needs to make putts in the clutch, we've seen this, at Augusta this year. We saw it last year at Oakmont. We saw it over the years that he just doesn't make enough big putts, coming down the stretch. And that's the one thing I'd like to see him win more on the PGA Tour. He's got all the talent in the world to do it, but he just hasn't won enough, for a guy that stature yet. But I think there's no doubt he can win a major championship. This guy's a big-time player. He had a lot of good shots, and it was disappointing to see him not make a couple of those putts at the end. Hopefully this is an experience where he can build on this and eventually get a major one day because I feel like he's got the ability to do that.
All right, what held Scotty Scheffler back this week?
Oh, just his putting, man. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, his putter was ice cold there on the weekend. It seemed like I thought he hit the ball a lot better. He didn't seem like he had that miss to the left as much, and I felt like his irons were a lot more dialed in, especially on the weekend. But he missed way too many putts. And that was the one thing that, at times over his career has proven when he finishes in the top 8 or 10, his putter's a little bit off. So I think that was the one thing that held him back. But incredible that he could play his B game and still to look at it to win on Sunday at a U.S. Open. That was cool to see that, even at, he's not playing his best, he's still able to be a factor in the tournament.
What else jumped out at you that you noticed over the course of the 4 days at the Open?
Yeah, I think, the guy I'll give a lot of credit to is Joaquin Niemann. This is a guy that obviously took the money from the Saudis to play the LIV Tour. and he made an 11. That was part of a 2-shot penalty there on the first day for throwing a club. You know, he could have easily packed it in. We know the money that those guys made playing the Live Tour. And he came back. He had 2 rounds in the mid-60s over the weekend. So this is a guy that's probably saying to himself, hey, I got to prove to myself that I can still play with the best in the world. And, I don't technically have a place to play next year. So I think he knew that he had to bounce back, and he showed a lot of resolve and a lot of guts there. So that was a great week for him. And, I think the golf course too, Chad, I think the big thing about the U.S. Open is for years we've always said how the USGA kind of leans on this. They want everything to be around par. They don't want to see real low scores. But I thought they did a really good job in setting the course up. They didn't get the greens burned out. They didn't lose the golf course like they did in 18 when Koepka won there. I thought it was a really good test and a really fair test overall.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I really enjoyed watching the guys, have to, manage their way through the golf course. I guess what I like about the U.S. Open, Dave, is that, they have to really make good decisions, and they have to be very accurate and precise with their shots, because if you're not, the damage is going to be punitive. You get in that rough, even if you're just in the first cut off the fairway, it changes your next shot dramatically. I like seeing those guys in a position where they have to be precise and make good decisions.
Yeah, strategy is a huge part of it. I mean, you saw some guys using irons off the tee, and there's been a lot less of that the last several years, Chad, because of the analytics, and we're seeing more and more guys try to play kind of like Bryson plays, where you hit a driver way down near the green, and then, you have a shorter shot in. But a couple times guys did that on that 10th hole, and they got almost too far down there, too close to green on an awkward line. It was tough to spin the ball and keep it on the green. So I think there's a lot of strategy involved to play that golf course, and that's good to see that it wasn't just a bomb and gouge fest. And I think there's no doubt that's why some of these golf courses still work, even though they've been around for, over 100 years or so.
Speaking of bomb fest, rough showing for Bryson DeChambeau.
Yeah, there's no doubt, Chad. I mean, something's going on with him right now. You hear a lot of rumors with all these guys would live, where these guys going to go play. I think I've heard a lot of people say his swing looks off. I think the biggest thing too with him, Chad, is I don't see how you can play, and hit short shots, with a 7-iron length club. That's really hard to do, especially when you're inside of 100 yards. And a guy who hits it as far as Bryson does, you're going to have a lot of wedge shots. And I mean, you think of trying to hit a lob wedge with a 7-iron length shaft. That's pretty hard to do. So I think Bryson's got to get that figured out, because to me, he's got a lot of those in-between shots where he's got to take something off of it. It's hard to do with a longer club. And then I think the other thing he has to figure out, Chad, is he going to really continue to try to play for a living? Does he want to be more of a YouTube guy and be like a guy that just goes and does these exhibitions and creates all this content on social media? What is Bryson's deal going forward? He might have the biggest question mark of anybody coming off a Live, because all these other guys know they're probably going to try to go back and play the DP World Tour, try to get in PGA Tour events, or maybe even Korn Ferry events. But where is Bryson going to go? So Bryson has a lot of question marks about his future.
Yeah, there's no question. You can see it in his game, just not playing with the same type of confidence we've seen in the past. We're talking with PGA David Coleman. All right, so what's next? So we look ahead to the Open Championship now.
Yeah, it should be fun at Birkdale there. Should be great. It's a golf course you need a lot of strategy on. A course where a lot of different kind of guys have won there. Ian Baker Finch won there. Chef from a long time ago. Jordan Spieth won there his last major. It's hard to predict the British Open, because the years we've seen where the weather was good, the cream kind of rises to the top, and the best players have a great chance to win. And then we've seen so many underdogs, like a Paul Lowry, Ben Curtis, Ian Baker Finch, who I mentioned. We've seen, a Costantino Rocca almost won at St. Andrews and took down John Daly over 30 years ago. So you really never know, Chad, before you get over there, because the weather is so different over there. The game is played so much more along the ground, and the bunkers you really have to avoid. It's like playing, the bunkers over there are the equivalent to water hazards on our courses here in the U.S. So it's always unpredictable. It's hard to say. obviously, I think Scheffler is going to be a factor. I think he'd love to go back-to-back because let's face it, he's only had one win this year. That's a down year for Scotty Scheffler, even though he's near the top of the FedEx Cup list. Definitely Scheffler would like to get another win. And I think the other thing that's going to be interesting to see is, this U.S. President's Cup team, who's going to be on this team. There's a lot of question marks with that. A lot of guys, I think like Chris Gotterup had a great start to the year. He's played okay since then, but I'd like to see him get back into top form because I think he's a guy that could be a big contributor to this team. I know Wyndham Clark now for sure should be a guy that would be on that team. And then, I think there's a lot of unknowns too, like for who Brandt Snedeker is going to take for the President's Cup when it's at Medina in Chicago in the fall. So can't wait to see, how all these guys, play this summer because I think there's a lot of uncertainty and, I think right now it's hard to say who's really the top player in the world because there's a lot of guys that have played good, but then they've been inconsistent at times as well. Like Matt Fitzpatrick, here's a guy who's won a bunch this year on the tour, and then he had a horrible weekend there at Shinnecock when a lot of people had high hopes for him. So it's going to be it's a very uncertain thing, and I think that's kind of good for golf right now because there's a lot of guys coming back from LIV, we think, and then who knows. With all these guys that have stayed, it's just good for the game. And I think the more parity and the deeper fields, it makes it exciting to watch.
All right, PGA David Coleman here on the Rip City Drive. Dave, as always, I love talking golf with you. Enjoy your week, and then we'll catch up before the Open Championship.
You got it, buddy. Yeah, thanks again, man. And really,
let's go. We'll kick off July 16th. All right, let's go out to the phone. Kick off July 16th. All right. Let's go out to the phones real quick. Mike in North Portland wants to chime in about the Wizards. Mike, I appreciate the call. What's on your mind?
First, I just got to say, pretty amazing. Are you following any of this World Cup action? Whoa, dude. It's a little messy, but, we got through it. Your guy, Messi, I know you can't stop talking about World Cup. You love it. You consume it yourself with it. All-time leading World Cup goal scorer. Anyways, on to real business.
No, but that was a big deal, though. Not only are they the defending champs, but I think it was his 17th and 18th goal that he scored in that victory over Austria. Props to Messi, man. That guy's a super stud.
I want to give Ronaldo a chance, but that first game he played was abysmal in that draw. They play again tomorrow. Portugal gets a chance. He gets a chance to redeem himself tomorrow. But I don't know. 5 goals already Messi has. How can you it's not even close anymore. Unless Ronaldo just lights the world on fire for the rest of the Cup, the debate's not. I don't think there's a debate anymore. I think it's Messi by a mile.
Hey, Mike, let me ask you a question. Before you get to basketball, let me ask you a question about World Cup. So, obviously I'm like most of the kids that grew up in the States where I played soccer a lot when I was younger. But in terms of sports viewing, I always gravitated towards football, baseball, basketball. Who got you into World Cup? How did you become a big soccer fan?
So I'm going to be 100,000% honest. Our Portland Timbers did. You have to find at the base of it, sport pretty much, right? You enjoy the sports you enjoy. But you have to find a love for it. And I think it was the Portland Timbers. I'll tell you what it was, Chad, and every Portlander should do this. There's a few things every Portlander should do. This is one of them. Go downtown Portland and see a match when the Seattle Sounders come to town. It doesn't matter who's good that year or bad. Both teams are good. Both teams are bad. That stadium is packed. It is loud, and it rivals the best Blazers playoff atmospheres I've ever been in. Easily fell in love that day. And then I gained a respect or appreciation beyond that for the top tier. I'm not watching, lower league, Premier League or, English Soccer League matches, but I am paying attention to the big stars now, the big games, realizing what it means on a global scale. So I would say the Portland Timbers got me into it.
That's
Moving
awesome.
On, the Washington Wizards have been an absolute dumpster fire for, checking the watch ever. But, Trae Young is the biggest name anymore. Him choosing Washington, I think, helps. And, man, when they, number one pick, they tanked for it this year. The future's not looking so bad there in Washington. They got Trae Young now. You got Alexander Sarr already there. If you can convince Anthony Davis to sign a deal that works for both sides, you got Anthony Davis. You also have the number 1 pick in the draft tomorrow. Things don't look quite as bleak anymore. So that's really just what I wanted to say. Oh, also add on top of that, the biggest free agent, well, he makes himself a free agent every year, from the DMV area. A lot of people forget that he's from there, Kevin Durant. If Kevin Durant was to become a rental down there, or up there in the nation's capital, that'd be quite interesting, Chad. Anyways, go Ronaldo. We'll take your comments off the air. Bye.
All right, appreciate it. That's Mike in North Portland. I'll give you some detail. Anthony Davis and Trae Young. That's insane. But I've got some insight on Anthony Davis and Trae Young. That's insane. But I've got some insight on Anthony Davis. I'll give you all the latest details on what we're looking at in terms of, trades, players, where guys are headed. We'll get to that next. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, so here's the latest with what we know, according to Shams. And according to the reports, Miami and Boston are the two leaders. And according to the reports, Miami and Boston are the two leaders right now to land Giannis. Trae Young is going to sign a 4-year, $212 million deal with the Wizards, which would mean he and AD would take up like 70% of their cap, which is crazy to me. Like, that's a lot to invest into Trae Young. And we're seeing more reporting that the Trailblazers could have interest in Anthony Davis. Now, this is something I heard going back to, prior to the trade deadline. I was told by a very good source that the Blazers had interest in Anthony Davis. And this goes back to the same source that informed me that, Tom Dundon's from Dallas. One person that he's close with is Nico Harrison, the former general manager of the Mavericks. And so Nico could be one of those guys that, Dundon, talks hoop with, right? So I heard about it then, and I have heard more about AD, but he could be a guy that they're eyeing. And obviously, the Blazers are going to need a center or a second center. If it's not going to be Rob Will, then, maybe that guy is AD. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. We'll talk NFL with Ryan Edwards coming up at 5:20. Let's go out to Raider Mike. Raider Mike, what's up, man? Fire away.
Benny Mardones. Cocaine Benny. And his penchant for young girls.
He went to Miami. He was supposed to continue to record down there, but after the success of that song Into the Night, he derailed into the party scene, unfortunately.
Yeah, we've discussed this over the years. He's what a powerful voice. I can actually do that voice, but I've never done it with an audience because it's just like in the opening lyric, she's just 16 years old, leave her alone, they said. And right out the chute, Benny's like, what are you doing, Benny? Benny couldn't handle Miami. That's okay.
Well, I wouldn't be able to handle Miami if I had a bunch of money in my pocket and I was down there during that day and age. I would have derailed too, probably.
Well, I was in L.A., not Miami, when I was that age, and yeah.
But the reason why he came up, Jeff Workman reached out to me on Twitter and was like, hey, I should have taken your advice and not watched the video. I'm like, I know, that's why I told you not to watch the video. So Jeff made the mistake of watching it, and now he's creeped out, understandably.
Well, it's a horrifying video, man.
Yeah, don't watch it.
Directed by porn guys. So I had to watch it. I was 10 years older than you. It was all over MTV. So I was forced to watch Benny Mardones and his weird excesses. So anyway, he is what he is.
Hey, how happy are the locals with the Hurricanes winning the Stanley Cup?
Oh, dude, they got in my face. I'll put it that way. I told you I was the only Golden Knight guy. And I took it, with grace. They beat us. They were a way better team, man. Those last two games, they killed us. They outskated us. They outshot us. We looked old. I mean, the Knights started to look old. So it is what it is. They've been to 3 cups in 9 years. And that's impressive for a team that's been in the league for less than a decade. So they're still my team. But, yeah, Carolina deserved it. And I love a small-town state like this. Raleigh, North Carolina is a pretty small city. Winning something like that, it's very Portland-like.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm happy for him, man. No, if my team ain't going to win it, I want the Kings. I want the Panthers to win here. The Hornets are just incapable. They're just a really bad franchise. I like the Wizards. Well, that dude said the Wizards are going to come on. No. The Wizards are one of those teams that is just going to suck forever. I don't know what it is about them. That's who they are. They can't draft. You can't get good coaches. They had a cool name, the Bullets, and then they changed it to the Wizards, which is kind of like a clown name, you know? Who wants to be a wizard?
I know.
Wizards are made fun of.
No, it's a weak name.
And their uniforms are horrifying. And the old Bullets uniforms, when they wore them with Unseld in, 78? Those were beautiful.
No, I agree. I love the old school Wizard uniforms are the best. Or not Wizards, but the Bullets uniforms. 503-248-0620. We're going to talk football with Ryan Edwards coming up at 5:20. Hope you're enjoying your Monday afternoon. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, what's going on, my friends? It's now 5 o'clock. Chad here. We start with the NBA. Dusty May is leaving the University of Michigan. He'll become the head coach of the Mavericks. Trailblazers now the only remaining opening for coach in the NBA. And with May going to Dallas, Mike Inouye remains available. He's one of the Blazers' finalists in their coaching search. According to Shams, the Bucks are expected to deal Giannis before the start of tomorrow's draft. Boston and Miami are the two leaders in the clubhouse. Shams also reporting that Trae Young is expected to ink a 4-year deal with the Wizards worth $212 million. CJ McCollum gets a 1-year deal with the Hawks, $21 million. And Messi has set a World Cup record with his 17th and 18th goals as Argentina advances to the knockout stage, 2-0 over Austria. Checking the Major League scoreboard. Right now, the Tigers on top of the Yankees, 5-1 in Detroit. Top of the sixth in Tampa. Royals 2, Rays 1. And the Rangers bottom of the fifth in Miami on top of the Marlins, 2-0. This might be the Bee Gees' finest song. It might be. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Hope you're enjoying your Monday afternoon. Boy, it's been a great week of golf. I was out at Forest Hills on Friday morning, on Saturday morning, and yesterday morning. And it was terrific. And I found that if you tee off early, you can get done in less than 4 hours, even on the weekend. So I like the early tee time. Course is in mint condition. And they've got those new tee boxes on the par 3, number 17. And I was on the elevated tee box off to the left that's overlooking the 16th green. That's a pretty sweet angle to come into that par 3. But Forest Hills right now playing so well. The greens, very nice. I actually birdied the par 3, number 4, which is one of the more ridiculous par 3s. From the whites, it plays at about 205 to 210, which is an insane number. And one thing about that hole, and I was yesterday, I got very lucky on the putt. If you're above the pin, you're a dead man. And basically, pretty much any green on that course, if you're above the pin on 2, 3, or 4, but if you're above the pin on 2, 3, or 4, you're done. Good luck with that. Good gracious. The putting, better the last 2 days, yesterday and today, but whew, I mean, I'm just an absolute clown show right now with the putter. Thought Wyndham Clark did a good job of, making a couple of 2 putts that he needed to make yesterday under pressure, which was impressive, to lock up his second U.S. Open title. All right, the NBA draft is coming up tomorrow. We're going to talk football with Ryan Edwards coming up here in about 15 minutes. But the draft's tomorrow and Wednesday. The Trailblazers, keep in mind, have no draft picks in this year's draft. So it's not going to be an eventful 2 nights for the Blazers. I don't expect them to jump into the draft. The price to get into the first round up high enough to be able to get one of those big-time players, and this is a deep draft, would be too high. The good thing is now that pick that they had conveyed to Chicago, they've got access to all of their picks, over the next several seasons, which is great because they got flexibility and they've got access to their assets that they can use if they choose to go big game hunting, which is pretty nice. But it does appear that Giannis is now headed to either Miami or Boston, and I'm still wondering because clearly Jaylen Brown's going to have to be involved in a Giannis deal. If he winds up in Milwaukee, could the Blazers somehow lure Jaylen Brown out of Milwaukee because they can offer up their draft assets that they got in the Dame trade? That's a possibility. Of all the big names out there that have been connected in one way, shape, or another to the Blazers, Jaylen Brown would be my desired piece. Now, keep in mind, how often over the last several years, anytime there's a rumored trade or one that's in the news or that people are talking about, it never happens with the Blazers. All of the moves that have gone down have always been ones that nobody expects. No one saw the Denny Avdia deal coming down. That caught everyone off guard. No one saw the Drew Holiday move coming down or Dame going to Milwaukee. So what I'm saying is that there could be deals that are getting ready to happen with the Blazers, but more than likely it's nothing that we've heard about or that's been reported on because that's kind of been the way things have gone down. The Blazers do a good job of kind of keeping things hush-hush as they work on their plan. And then when it goes down, we find out about it. But the Blazers are in a very good spot right now as they get ready for the upcoming offseason. And we do know from Shams that the Bucks want to trade Giannis before the draft tomorrow, so something's going to go down that's going to change the landscape in the NBA. But the Trailblazers are in a position now to where they could be, one of the main pieces. If they go big game hunting, they could be a supporting piece as part of a multi-team deal. They can stand pat and continue with their internal development. They're in a great position because they don't have the pressure to have to go out and do anything right now. So no picks tomorrow, but they do have their full $15.1 million mid-level exception and the $5.5 million biannual exception to sign players in free agency, or they can utilize those two vehicles to absorb players in trades. Now, the salary cap in the NBA for the upcoming season is going to be set at $165 million. The tax line sits at $201 million, with the first apron and the second apron at $209 and $222. So right now, the Blazers' current payroll is $170 million, so they're above the cap, but they're over $30 million below the tax line, which is good, which means they have flexibility. There's no restraints on what they can do. Their free agents are Robert Williams III, Matisse Thybulle, Blake Wesley, and they have a restricted free agent in Caleb Love. Both Shaedon Sharpe and Tamani Kamara kick off the first seasons of their rookie extensions. Shaedon at just over $20 million, Tamani Kamara just over $18 million. And on those particular price tags at that length of 4 years, those are very tradable deals. I'm not saying the Blazers are going to trade Tamani Kamara, but maybe Shaedon Sharpe becomes a piece in some bigger move that they have their eyes on. Scoot Henderson's eligible for an extension until the last day before the regular season kicks off. So they could work something out now to lock him up, or they could wait until next summer to let him hit restricted free agency. The weird part about Scoot and Shaedon right now is I don't think the Blazers have enough, not as much data as they would like on both players to know exactly what they have. 12 players currently under contract. 14 is the league mandate. The Blazers, as I mentioned before, have full control of their tradable first-round picks from 27 to 33. So we'll see if they favor continuity, if they want to bring the roster back, adding Dame, who's going to come back from the Achilles. Flexibility. That's what they have. I guess the big question I have is, what's the mindset of Tom Dundon right now? Is he looking to make a big splash? Like, does he want to get aggressive and make something happen? Now that he's the new owner has taken over? I mean, are you looking to make a big splash because you want people to get excited and fill up the seats at Moda Center? Is there a player out there that you want to make a splash on because you think that could be a piece that would help get you over the hump in the Western Conference? Or do you favor a more conservative approach, continuing with your internal development, knowing that you got a team that's on the rise and just continue to wait until your opportunity comes to pounce on a particular player that you're eyeing. And as I mentioned before, they have had interest in Anthony Davis in the past at the trade deadline. And there are continued reports that the Blazers could have interest in Anthony Davis right now. The Wizards, you would expect, are going to look to do something because they have 70% of their cap tied up into AD and Trae Young. So there you have it. I kind of like that. I like having the flexibility of knowing that you don't have to go out and do something right now. But between their draft picks and the contracts that they have with Shaedon Sharpe, with Drew Holiday, with Jeremy Grant, they've got the ability to go out there and get aggressive. And that's just something to keep in mind. Some of the players that you may want to eye, well, there are teams. Cap space coming up this summer, the Nets, the Bulls, and the Lakers. Those teams are going to have money to work with in terms of free agency. Mid-level exception targets. The Blazers have their full mid-level, which is 15.1 per year. You're looking at players like Quentin Grimes from Philly, John Collins, Robert Williams, who was one of the Blazers' unrestricted free agents, Colin Gillespie, who I think just got locked up by the Suns, Kelly Oubre, Mitchell Robinson, Luke Kennard, Rui Hachimura, Nikola Vucevic, and Kobe White. Players that could be on the trade block: John Morant, Domantas Sabonis, Miles Turner, Cam Johnson, Lou Dort, the defensive stopper for the Thunder, Julius Randle, Michael Porter Jr., Isaiah Joe, Zach LaVine, and DeMar DeRozan. So we'll see. We'll see what the Blazers are able to go out there and do. But I still think that Portland could be the benefactor in this Milwaukee deal when Giannis goes out, because Portland has the assets to be able to work with a team if they want to be a primary figure and go after a big fish, or because of their assets if they want to, go after someone like Jaylen Brown as part of a 3-team deal. But I still think the Blazers having Milwaukee's picks puts them in a very good position. So, like I mentioned before, I think right now is a great time to be a Trailblazer fan. New owner in place, aggressive, wants to win, will do whatever it takes to make that happen. Joe Cronin, who has restocked the cupboard and having full access to their tools to be able to go out there and be a big game hunter if they so desire. I think that's a good thing. But the draft is tomorrow and Wednesday, and then shortly thereafter, as we get to the end of the month, we'll enter into free agency and a new league year where, things are going to happen. But we should expect that Giannis is going to be dealt before the start of the draft tomorrow. I also heard today from a very trusted source, Trailblazers expected to have a coach in place by the end of the week. So I would think by Friday, we'll know who the new Trailblazers coach is going to be. And with Dusty May now leaving Michigan to go to Dallas, that means Portland is the only open position for head coach in the NBA. So if the Blazers, if it's Mike Inori or somebody else, but the good thing is Mike Inori did not get the Dallas job, and I know that he's one of their finalists, so we could be looking at Mike Inori being hired as Trailblazer coach by the end of the week. And there you have it. That is the latest around the NBA. 503-248-0620. Are you upset that it looks like the Blazers are out on Giannis? Did you want Giannis? Do you think he was the missing piece to get Portland over the hump in the Western Conference? 503-248-0620. We're going to come back and we'll talk some NFL. Ryan Edwards, who I think is enjoying a little vacation right now, is going to join us. And we'll keep things rolling. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, I'm jealous because Ryan, I've been of his pictures. Ryan Edwards from 850 KOA in Denver back on the Rip City Drive. So, Ryan, I've been enjoying pictures. Ryan Edwards from 850 KOA in Denver back on the Rip City Drive. So, Ryan, I've been enjoying the pictures. It looks like you're having a great time with the family. So, where all have your adventures taken you guys to?
Oh, my gosh, all over the place. Obviously, this is a little bit more of a getaway before training camp, which is right around the corner. But we are in New Orleans this time.
That's terrific. I've never been to New Orleans. I've come close to going a couple of times, but everyone I've talked to said it's so unique and so awesome. How have you guys enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's great, man. I mean, it's hot.
Yeah,
like
really hot.
It's pretty ridiculous. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous down here. But no, man, the food is phenomenal. The scenes, we're kind of more on the outside of it, like in an Airbnb. But something we do every year with the family, with my parents. Try to find a place around the country just to go and visit and hang out, and this year was New Orleans. So, yeah, we're having a good time so far, man. Appreciate it.
What's the best thing that you've eaten so far in New Orleans?
Oh, boy. God, let's see here. Last night I had oysters, and down here, I mean, the Cajun stuff's obviously great, but seafood is obviously number one for me. And, the oysters last night were pretty insane.
Now, do you eat them off the shell, or do you like them fried? What's your favorite way to consume oysters?
Yeah, I like them charred, and then I like them on the shell. Yeah, I've been around people that like them raw. I can't quite get there, and I like sushi. Don't get me wrong, but I just can't quite get to raw oysters. But I've had friends before swear by them. For me, they got to be cooked. It's the only way I can handle it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've done raw oysters before. It's just not really my thing, but I like them when they're cooked, especially like you mentioned, charred. Now, with sushi, I didn't like sushi until I went to a legit sushi restaurant. I realized what the big difference was before is that it's all about fresh. If you're getting fresh fish,
that's right,
then it's the game changer. And once I had it the right way, I was like, wow, this is awesome, right? I was like, it blew my mind.
Yeah, it's a massive difference. I mean, obviously there's levels of this thing. You a gas station sushi is probably on the far end of that thing. So definitely don't recommend that. But yeah, if you're gonna go, do it at the right place, it's pretty phenomenal. But once again, there's some people that just can't get past the whole raw fish anything or raw anything. And like my dad, for example, he will never eat anything raw ever. So it doesn't matter how many ways I, spin it or tell him, or even my mom will try it. He's just like, nah, never happening for me. I'm in my 70s now. I think I can live the rest of my life without trying that.
No, it's pretty funny. It's interesting that you're doing a getaway before training camp starts. Your life is very similar to mine. My busy time is basketball season once the Trailblazers training camp kicks off, and then I'm covering games all the time. Same thing with you. Once training camp kicks off, it's constant football. But it's weird. It's like 6 months out of my life, I'm constantly working, and then I have that nice reprieve after the season. But isn't that strange how, the longer you do it, you understand how much work is going to go into once training camp starts throughout the rest of the season. And so it's nice to take advantage of this time because it's a huge mountain of work ahead of you.
Well, certainly. And you learn to kind of, like you said, kind of appreciate it and prioritize it. Because once training camp starts, which again is like a month from now for us, we don't stop, and it's weekends, and it's all the way. For the Broncos, it's going to probably be at least into January, like mid to late January.
Yeah.
Hopefully even into February. But the point of it is you just got to be locked in for all of it. You're not. There is no all right, well, now I'm going to take some time. Maybe during the bye week you can get a day or so, but I still do the Monday through Friday show from 3 to 6, and then of course weekends are 12 to 14-hour days on Sunday.
Yeah.
So, it's like unapologetic. You just, this time of year, hey, man, I'm out. I'll see you guys in a week.
No question about it. We're talking with Ryan Edwards, 850 KOA in Denver. Before we get to Bo Nix, I wanted to ask you about the schedule. I keep looking over the first 6 weeks and the games that the Broncos have to play, which starts with the Monday nighter in Kansas City against the Chiefs. What was your reaction when you saw the way the NFL front-loaded that Broncos schedule?
Well, on one hand, I can understand that, being a little apprehensive about it, thinking in terms of, okay, well, if the Broncos get off to a bit of a slower start, then you could find yourself in a pretty significant hole. I keep talking myself into, whether it's legitimate or not, the other side of that coin, which is, well, the Broncos have a lot of continuity. the coaching staff, with the scheme. The one big change really is with offensive coordinator, but a lot of the people around the building seem to believe this is going to kind of revolutionize some things. So if you talk yourself into, if you can front load this and you get off to a faster start, what is that going to mean for you in the back half of the season when maybe some of the schedule breaks your way and you're already playing great football, right? And so maybe it's a little bit of a survive and advance mentality that you're going to have here in the first few weeks, and just not looking too far ahead. Just each week, hey, this is a big opponent, we got to play great. But I do believe that they're the kind of team, because of the continuity they built there, that they can take on this challenge. But once again, we're going to find out pretty quick kind of who they are and if this plan of continuity was a good one.
Well, I've always thought that continuity is one of the more underrated things in sport because, especially if you just look at an offensive line, if you have 5 guys that come back intact, the way they're able to work together, they get off the snap together, they work, like 5 guys as one. So I'm a big believer in continuity. But what do you think about the Broncos squad? Clearly, Denver believes in their players because they brought their guys back. Do you like that approach by Denver? Were you surprised by that?
I mean, it's a little surprised, and that's why I say, most of the time we say continuity, we think good things. But in this case, they brought back 17 of their free agents, right? I mean, we're not talking about hey, well, if you get key guys that they really liked, we're talking about everybody's coming back. I mean, I think literally 2, maybe 3 guys with that, either priced out, obviously JFM, for example, Drake Greenlaw, they're ready to move on. But I mean, they brought back 95% of their roster from last year. I mean, that's unheard of. I've never heard anything like it. So back to your question, mostly I'd say it's a good thing because you know who your guys are. You didn't feel like you needed to overpay in free agency. You didn't need to chase anything. But the other side of that thing is to say, well, did you really get the best player that you possibly could have gotten this offseason to play, say, inside linebacker? That is one for a lot of Broncos fans that they're not as big of fans with Singleton and with Sternad, right? And those are your 2 starters that you brought back and paid money to. Same thing with Adam Troutman at tight end. People thought, well, you could have done more to upgrade there. But again, they prioritized guys that they liked, guys they knew they fit their system. So like I said, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but I'd say for them, that bet is, okay, we're bringing back these guys. They know our system. They know the culture. They know what we're trying to do. We'll add a few guys in free agency. Of course, we made the Jalen Waddle trade, and we feel like we've made enough there to kind of not only keep the baseline of who we are, but also take ourselves forward. But once again, if things start falling apart, right, you won a lot of one-score games last year, is it because you really didn't upgrade the roster? You just sort of went status quo. And that's going to be the thing that a lot of people are watching.
All right, Ryan. Bo Nix, depending on who you listen to, whether it's Coach Peyton or Bo, it sure sounds like he's going to be okay for the upcoming season. I'm just wondering what's the local feel on the ankle? He had the surgery after breaking it again in the game against Buffalo in the playoffs, and then had the cleanup for bone spurs. Is he going to be okay for the season, or is this something that maybe 5, 6, 7 years from now we'll start to get concerned about the ankles? Where are you at on that?
They keep telling us that it's fine. We obviously got a chance to be around him this week, mandatory minicamp. He kind of progressed a little bit by the last day. He was doing some 7-on-7 stuff, but he seemed like he was a little bit protecting it, but also, wanted to show that he could jog and move out there. So I feel like they keep telling us that the second procedure was to eliminate the possibility of needing to go back and do a cleanup later. He's like, let's get the cleanup done now. We're in the midst of an off season. It doesn't matter now. And then now I'm going to be good to go, not only for this season, but hopefully into the future. So they're in their mindset, this was more of a, hey, we probably didn't need to do the second procedure, but we went ahead and got it done and got it knocked out, and now we're good to go for beyond. So, again, your question is the same one we all have. We'll see, right? We all feel like this season, like almost any other team in the NFL, really does ride oftentimes on your quarterback. It's a very deep team. It's a good team, but we already saw the AFC Championship game. If they don't have Bo Nix, you immediately have a different outlook on everything. But I think they're going to be good. He feels like he's going to be good, so we'll see.
What's crazy, with the Broncos, just looking around, both conferences, but the AFC, and again, this can change, but on paper, you look at the AFC West, you got 3 contenders in the Broncos, Chiefs, and Chargers. That's 3 teams. In the South, Houston, Indy, and Jacksonville. That's 3 more teams. That's 6. In the North, you've got Baltimore, Cincy, and potentially Pittsburgh. That's 9. And with the Bills and the Patriots in the East. Like, that's 11 teams in the AFC that maybe right now all believe they can make a run at the AFC Championship. That is as deep as a conference as I can ever remember.
It's remarkable. And I'd still say I think the NFC is stronger. I mean, it's an interesting debate, right? But like you just said, there's 11 teams right there out of 16. And I go over the NFC side, and you saw it last year. I mean, it was a murderer's row, those guys in the playoffs, right? I mean, it's like any one of these teams emerges and you think they're the favorite. So, yeah, I mean, the AFC is going to be, pretty loaded. But once again, we always have these conversations on paper, and I have to remind myself this because we have these conversations on paper, and then you get into the season, and there's always some surprises, right? There's some teams like, holy cow, I didn't see them popping up. I mean, Indy this last year was certainly Jacksonville was in that conversation as a surprise. And then, and Patriots too, right? So then, and that was the team in the Super Bowl. So there's going to be some surprises. And once again, there's going to be some teams that, well, hey, we think the Chiefs are back. Maybe they're not back. Maybe some of the cracks that we saw last year are more indicative of some other things that are going on there. Same thing with Baltimore, right? They just had a coaching change. We think they're great, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they will be. So I love that about the NFL. I think we all love that about the NFL, but certainly we know it's going to be hyper competitive one way or the other, even if there are some surprises.
Who do you think the favorite in the AFC West is? Is it Denver? I mean, it would sure seem like on paper it's probably Denver. We'll have to wait and see what Patrick Mahomes is like at the beginning of the year, but it would look like the Broncos have a pretty good case to repeat as AFC West champs.
I think they do. I was on a Kansas City radio station a few weeks ago, and they asked me the exact same question. And I was like, well, I mean, your listeners are going to make me sound like a homer, but I think the Broncos are still the favorite here. I know the odds makers have the Chiefs there. Maybe even the Chargers, I think, are ahead of the Broncos. They're like neck and neck. But the Broncos brought back everybody, and they look like a team that is ascending. Now, once again, you got to go out there and you got to win these games, and that beginning of that schedule is tough. But if the Broncos can somehow get out of that 6-game stretch, 3-3, maybe even 4-2, like on the really high end, look out. Like they could put together a really good run there in the second half of the season. And I'm kind of excited to see Bo Nix not have to ease into the season. I want to see them come out and I want to see them go after it.
Yeah.
That there's sometimes it felt like even in games last year, like in the individual games, they kind of waded into the waters, right? Like eased into things. And then they get off to these slow starts. And then there were some fun finishes in the fourth quarter. But again, you're playing with fire doing that every single week. It worked last year. It will not work this year. So I'd like to see them come out and say, this is who we are. We're going to establish who we are, and we're going to take it to you. And I think that's going to really help the overall value of the team. But again, those are tough teams. Those are all contending teams. So you can't ease in. You got to go after them.
All right, one more question for you. I first became aware of the supplemental draft as a youngster because the Broncos got Bobby Humphrey in '89. He had some foot issues in college, and they got him out of the supplemental draft, and he turned out to be a big-time hit for them. Brendan Sorsby is expected to, declare himself for the supplemental draft. And I'm just wondering, is the reason why we haven't heard much of the supplemental draft of late is because everyone's eligible with the new rules in college and everything? Is that kind of how it works, and the reason why we haven't had players declare for the supplemental draft?
Yeah, it takes a certain amount of things that have to click into place for you even to be in the conversation of supplemental draft. So, I mean, if you academically didn't become eligible until very late, right? That would be a reason why you might enter the supplemental draft. But this is just one of those rare circumstances. And I think it's rare specifically because of what we think Brendan Sorsby would have gone in the draft. Like if he would have come out, if he just would have declared instead of going to Texas Tech, which again, $5 million, I'm not turning it down either, but I'm just saying if he would have just declared, he probably would have been a first-round pick. And so that makes this very intriguing because that wasn't very long ago that we considered him a first-round pick. So now you fast forward a few months, what makes it unique is most teams have made their quarterback decisions for the season at this point, right? You're going into July. This pick won't happen until the end of July, which means training camps are basically starting, which means you're going to be redshirting this guy. He's probably not playing for you. But that's the thing is, are you willing to spend a second-round pick? And we don't see guys get drafted. I mean, it's been over 3 decades since we saw, and this was the Dallas Cowboys, actually, that did this. The same year they drafted Troy Aikman, spending a compensatory pick on a quarterback in the first round. We just don't ever see it. So that's why this is so unique and so interesting for so many levels. And if there's teams that, worry about the gambling stuff and worry whether or not he's going to be like a guy that relapses, or if the NFL is going to come in and put some kind of suspension or sanction. I mean, there's all sorts of levels to this conversation. But yeah, you're right. We don't see it very often. There's a lot more intrigue in the supplemental draft than I can ever remember. I think Josh Gordon's the last guy that I remember,
Josh Gordon, that's right.
See where he goes.
Yeah, Josh Gordon. Interesting. All right, Ryan Edwards, 850 KOA in Denver. Hey, thanks for your time, man. Enjoy the rest of your vacation and your downtime with the fam, and we look forward to talking to you in the future, buddy.
I appreciate you, brother. Thanks.
You got it. There he is, New Orleans. I've not been. One time, I think the Raiders open up the season in New Orleans. Joe Lowe and I were going to head down when I was working down in the Bay Area, but we did not make it. But I haven't been. Have you been to New Orleans, Shacker? Have you been down there?
No, I haven't. I'm one of those people that read the rumor that Tulane was going to come to the Pac-12 and was praying that would come true, and then hopefully get a chance to see the Beavers play in New Orleans. But yeah, I've never been there. Rich Burke has been there because AAA baseball that he used to work with Portland Beavers, they would go play the New Orleans Zephyrs.
That's right.
And so now I'm fantasying that maybe the Hillsboro Hops will become a AAA team in the near future, and then there'll be games and reasons to go to New Orleans.
And I think that's going to happen. I think the Hops eventually will become AAA. I think that's kind of the idea. And they certainly got the ballpark for it now. That place is phenomenal. All right, let's see. We got Mitch in New Jersey wants to jump on board, so we'll get to him next. I appreciate your time. Big thanks to Ryan Edwards and PJ Dave for joining the show today. You got the Rip City Drive. And I was hoping that they would perform this song when I saw them in Vegas a couple of years ago. They did not, but we did get Girl Can't Help It. Both songs from the same album, Raised on Radio.
You still have a chance to see Journey in town.
Where are they playing at the Coliseum?
Yeah.
Why'd they get demoted to the Coliseum? This is like their finale tour.
Well, it's easier to sell out.
That's true. I think this is one of their more underrated songs. I played this on my Walkman a ridiculous number of times when I was younger. And trying to pretend that you can sing like Steve Perry is an impossibility. His vocals, pretty ridiculous.
I think I got twice as many years out of my Walkmans than I did out of my Discmans.
Yeah, I know. Walkmans were much more durable. And you wouldn't think that would be the case, but they were.
You drop a Discman, it's over.
They did not survive the fall, but the Walkman surprisingly would. All right, let's go out to the phones. Mitch in New Jersey wants to chime in. I always love hearing from Mitch. What's up, Mitch? What's on your mind?
What's poppin', Chad? How you doing? How's the family?
The family is great. I enjoyed Father's Day yesterday. It was very nice. How about you?
Happy belated Father's Day. Yeah, good.
You
good.
too.
My little two little grandsons, he's getting big. I mean, after one more year, he'll be in kindergarten. And my little Jeremiah, I'm looking forward to taking him swim lessons again. You know, I hold him up. This guy, the instructor, and he's a little overweight to say the least. He's about 300 pounds plus. But he's teaching these kids. I'm trying to follow him, how to hold him. Then you put him in these floats, and I cradle him. And he's like so calm. He's so calm with me. I wish everybody else in my family could be calm with me. You know, like it gets to be like, kind of like the Costanzas. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I understand what you're saying. I can't believe that your grandson's almost going into kindergarten. That makes me feel old.
Well, you're playing Journey. I remember that in high school in the late 70s. Class of 1980. Susan E. Wagner. Staten Island. That's right. The best part of New York City.
That's great. Did you go check out some of the U.S. Open at Shinnecock?
No, I haven't. I'm pretty, even though I'm being retired, I still think about going to work casual, but I'm here at the Express. It's getting rough out there.
But let me ask you a question. Like, what are you doing in retirement? Like, what have you managed to do over the last couple of years to kind of fill your time? Because you were used to such a regimented day. So how are you filling your time?
I still go drive around and feed some of the dogs. I got some just within my neighborhood here.
Nice.
I haven't gotten that. I miss retired. I miss most of the people too. I miss that. Don't think it's always so green on the other side of the hill.
That's
great.
I
do miss that. I miss the camaraderie. I've been going to the gym lately. You know, getting a little heavy here. But I think I would have been eating more when I was working. I was always battling to be. I'm a little overweight, Chad. Not like you. I can't believe you go to the gym and you slim, but it's just working for you, Chad. I'll let you know when I get to 160. That's my goal.
That's great. If you lived to be that old, that'd be pretty amazing.
No, not 160 pounds, not 160.
Oh, 160 pounds. No, that'd be nice, man. I want to see Mitch all lean and cut up.
How about just lean? How about no belly? You know, no fun belly, right? That's my sweet tooth. First of all, I heard Jaylen Brown, Portland Trailblazers might be interested. They should go for it. I don't know why Boston want to give up on Jaylen Brown. He's just as good as Tatum. I was about to say Tatum O'Neal, but Tatum, he's a heck of a player, but so is Jaylen Brown. Cal, he's a bear. He's a Pac-12 guy. So go get him. I'm thinking, Mike, I just read that Tucker is hurt now. Lower back injury. They gave this guy $6 million. It would have been better with Cody. Cody Beller's having a better year. I think while Bolton was in town, they should have made a trade for Henderson. Because they are getting a little old. I'm more worried about the offense. And they got enough starters. They got enough starters on the DL as right now they're pitching for them. So they're good. When they all come back, it's gonna be like a USC football sideline with 90 kids on the sideline. They're gonna have plenty of ammunition, plenty of arms, and they might as well just trade for Scooble. Get over it, not break any rules. Go for 3. I'm worried about 4 because it really doesn't sound good. It's gonna be baseball next year.
That's great. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to football season. I think your Dodgers are probably on their way to another championship, so it's a good time to be alive, Mitch.
And how about you think my USC? I'm more interested in college ball. I'm loving college ball more than the NFL. You know, my Raiders, I follow with the Rams and the 49ers, but the Raiders, they finally got that good, real quarterback. I think he's going to be. He was a Pac-12, and he was good. People just think he was good just when he got to Indiana. I think he was just as good as it was at Cal. And Cal has a new quarterback. He'll be the top pick in 28. So I got Politelli. Remember that. All right, but I think USC will make the playoffs this year. I'm not going to say they're going to win it all.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if Lincoln Riley can get it right. That's Mitch in New Jersey. It's interesting. All the way out in Staten Island, and he is obsessed with West Coast sports. That's the way it's always been with Mitch. All right, 503-248-0620. So draft tomorrow, and then, again, the Blazers with no pick, so fairly uneventful night for the Blazers. And then we move on from there and get ready for the offseason. But keep in mind, this Giannis trade is probably going to go down over the next several hours. You know, the Bucks want to get it done before the draft, and we'll see if the Blazers can be a part of a 3-team deal, with Miami and Boston being the likely spots to land him. But clearly, if Boston's involved, Jaylen Brown's going to be shipped out. The question is, does Milwaukee want to keep him, or would they be willing to move him if they could get some of their picks back? All right, big thanks to Michael Shacker for engineering the program. To all of you, thank you for your time. I do appreciate it. Evening, and I'll talking some NFL. You guys have a great night. Enjoy your Monday evening, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Talking some NFL. You guys have a great night. Enjoy your Monday evening, and I'll catch you tomorrow here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620.